This is Angela with Women's Personal Finance here with Kristin, aka the Frugal Girl, come to talk to us about frugality, divorce, and going back to school in your 40s. Kristin and I first met a whole bunch of years ago as money bloggers and got to meet each other for the first time back in 2019 and then again in 2025 at FinCon. So while we've known each other a very long time, we've actually only ever been in person twice. And Kristin went through a divorce recently, and while she's been talking about frugality for a long time, she's been really awesome talking about what it looks like from the other side of things as well. And so we asked her to come talk to everyone about all that stuff. So, Kristin, if you want to just introduce yourself a little bit for everyone tonight.
Sure. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me. So I have been blogging since 2008, so I'm a little bit of a dinosaur in the blogging world. I started my blog kind of on a whim, and I just enjoy doing it and I just have never stopped. Um, and while I started my blog just kind of on a whim, I didn't know that I would eventually use the income from it to leave a problematic marriage. So I left my marriage after over 20 years back in 2022. And then my divorce was final in 2024. And my blog was pivotal in getting me out of that marriage because I had my own income stream. Without it, I think it would have been way more complicated to leave my marriage. It would have been possible, but just way, way more difficult. So I have always felt so grateful to the 2008 version of me that decided to open up WordPress and give this blogging thing a try. Not only has it been a source of income for me, there's so much community for me through my blog that has been a support for me through all the transition, especially that's happened in the last couple of years. And so I feel like it's a symbiotic relationship. Like my readers come to my blog because they are served by it, but also I get a lot out of putting content out there and interacting with people, and it just feels like just like this like the opposite of a vicious cycle. It's a wonderful way for um, us to enjoy each other. So I love blogging. I don't have any plans to quit. They keep saying blogging will die, but they've been saying this for a long time, and my blog is still not dead. So I'll just keep going until blogs do actually die.
I also think we may be like coming back a little bit to blogging and like more like personal content too, especially with how much AI is happening in
hmm
constant real time. I think there is starting, yeah, a comment that long form content is coming back. And I think so, and I hope so. Actually, next week's newsletter is about literacy and long form content. So, um, but yeah, I
Nice.
think that the more that we're just getting this like polished machine spit out content for everything, I think people are like asking for more personal, real stories and real stuff. That's kind of why people started reading blogs in the first place was
hmm
because, you can learn how to save money or invest or do whatever from just like Googling on the internet.
Yeah.
But like the reason why blogs and podcasts and whatnot do well is because people want to actually hear personal stories and, be able to relate to what they're hearing. So.
100%. Yes. Yes. You could read a personal finance book, you can read a frugality book and or but it's the seeing what this looks like in somebody's personal life. It's showing up as your real self even when you're not polished and you're just a random person who lives over in Maryland who decided to start a blog. Like I'm not a financial expert. I just have showed up consistently and written about my life honestly, about whatever is going on and what I'm doing. And somehow it has resonated with people. And sometimes I feel a little like maybe I should be more professional than this. And then I'm like, you know what? This is working. So if it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it. Whatever I'm doing is okay. And I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to keep typing stuff and hitting publish.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also is like we had this period of time where everything had to be like perfectly polished in order to like take you seriously. And I think I almost now take people more seriously if it's not overly polished. So,
Hmm. Then you know it's not AI.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to read a lifestyle blog or a frugality blog from an AI bot.
No. No, because it's just going to be generic. You might be able to get some accurate information, maybe. That's questionable too. But you're definitely going to be missing the personal element. And that's why I am not at all worried about AI taking away my blog because people come to my blog because it's me writing, not because they're just looking for how-tos or something. And AI cannot be me. So I'm not worried.
Yet.
I think I'll be fine.
Um,
Angela, don't scare me,
I know, I
okay?
know. But how has it been different? Like I feel like 2026 now is extremely different from 2008. Like how does talking about frugality look different? How does blogging look different? Like I I feel like in some ways almost we're circling back-ish to the kind of content that resonated in 2008, 2010
Yeah.
because things are like rougher financially for a lot of folks, whereas
Hmm.
like in the like real big, nice, at least financial years for a while, there was a lot more content about like hustling harder and making more money, and it seemed like the sky was the limit as far as money stuff was concerned. Whereas
That's
like
true.
oh 08,
Yeah.
there was, a lot of like, how do I save every penny because I don't know when I'm getting more pennies.
I also feel like people are getting tired of influencer culture. Like I'm seeing a whole lot more content, especially on social media, of the de-influencing flavor. Like it's okay, you don't need to buy this, or let me influence you not to go and do this, or look, here's me reusing this thing. I see it popping up all the time, and I did not see that before. So yeah, maybe we are just a little tired of watching people who have 300 Stanley cups and closets the size of our master bedroom. And maybe we're just over that now. So, yeah, maybe we're ripe for some authenticity. Back in 2008, I feel like it was so much simpler to start a blog because there really wasn't social media and you could just like type out some long paragraphs and hit publish and then people would find your site. It was just the barrier to entry was lower back then, I think. So I feel lucky that I started back then because there wasn't so much to learn. Now, if you want to start a blog, there's all of these things you need to know, and I didn't need to know all of those back in 2008. So I just bumbled my way through it and figured it out as I went. People often ask me like, "Well, how did you know what to do?" I didn't know what to do, but you do, at first when you start something, it's not like you have 5,000 people sitting there waiting to read it. Like you can figure it out as you go because you will not be popular on day one. People think they have to have, this whole big thing set up, and I just really don't think that's true. People get stuck in the preparation stage, and I'm all about like just send it. It's
Yeah.
imperfect, just send it. Just keep sending things.
And
And eventually,
it's gonna suck at first regardless.
yes, yes,
So
yes. The first blog I started before I started the Frugal Girl, let me tell you the URL. It was confessions of a recovering food waster.blogspot.com. Just rolls right off the tongue. So easy to type.
but you
So
started out with food waste.
I did. I did. Yes, that was why I started blogging because I was horrified with how much food I was throwing away. And so I decided to post a picture of my food waste on the internet every week for accountability. And then that kind of got me bit with the blogging bug. And then I decided, oh, I would like to blog about this, but food waste is maybe a slightly narrow topic. So that's when I started the Frugal Girl. And then I just have rolled the food waste stuff in with that. But I do still feel strongly about food waste.
I feel
I
like in
just
2026 you could actually have a blog just about food waste now in a way that I think people weren't ready in 2008.
that is possible. Yeah. I just feel like it's a little limiting. I don't know if I could have been blogging 5 days a week since 2008 just about food
Oh
waste.
yeah. Well, that's like my clothes buying ban. Like I could totally make an account or a blog or something just on that, and it would be so boring to talk about
Yeah.
like one thing.
Yes, yes. I like my blog topic because there's so many different things that I can talk about under the umbrella of it. So obviously I never run out of anything to talk about because I'm
Yeah.
still here typing away 5 days a week
Yeah.
all these years later.
So, as far as like frugality and like the fact that it can be so many things and whatnot, do you feel like how did that help you get through like the last 4 years? Like, do you feel like life has changed as far as that front, like going through your divorce and then like getting free on the other side? Like, I know that you have forever been frugal, but like, did that look different now that,
Um, I always say, like, I have been in training for this my whole life because if there was anybody who was set to like start over with almost nothing and put together a house on such a shoestring, I was ready for it. So I found a place to rent. I did get to take some stuff from my house, but mostly I was starting from scratch. And so I used all my frugal skills. I refinished furniture. I got stuff from my Buy Nothing group. I got stuff from my Facebook Marketplace. Neighbors gave me things that I refinished and fixed up. And my brother had bought a house that was occupied by hoarders. And so I ended up getting a whole bunch of things from the hoarder house. And so many of my dishes, lots of my furniture, all kinds of stuff in my house is rescued from the hoarder house. So and then the my divorce took 2 years. Um, and I wasn't getting any child support or spousal support. And my lawyer bills cost me $36,000 all told. So I was definitely living on the edge there. So I was very grateful that I knew how to live on so little because if out of any time in my life, that's when I really, really needed those frugal skills. And because I was already good at it, it wasn't as much of a challenge as it could have been otherwise.
yeah. So, the divorce thing you said you were in an abusive relationship. I feel like on Threads yesterday you said something about how your husband point blank told you that he didn't love you.
Yep.
So you want to maybe talk a little bit about like how'd you get to the point where you knew it was time to leave and what was the hardest part of leaving?
Um, leaving was actually not the hardest part. It was the 25 years before that. That was the hardest part. So I grew up in a conservative Christian family. I was homeschooled, very sheltered, and purity culture was a big thing when I was a teenager, and dating was frowned on. So I married the first guy who was ever interested in me when I was 19. And I have a lot of grace for my past self because I know she was literally doing what she had been programmed to do. There was no way that I could have seen the red flags. I did not know what to look for. I had no experience. Nobody around me expressed any concern about this. And so I really do not beat myself up over that at all. So he was abusive in pretty much every way except for hitting me, but I did not recognize it as abuse really until 2018, I think was the first time that I had Googled emotional abuse because of the religious environment that I was raised in. I really was programmed to think this was my fault. If I was unhappy, it was my fault. If I just tried harder, if I submitted harder, if I obeyed more, if I made myself smaller, then things would be okay. Um, and so I'm a person who works very hard, and I brought that energy to my marriage. I don't think there's a human being on the planet who could have tried harder than I did. If trying hard enough would have fixed it, my marriage would have been fixed. So it got progressively worse over time, more and more controlling. Because when somebody is abusive, they're trying to often make themselves feel better. It's like taking the wrong drug for whatever disease you have. So you try, they keep getting more and more controlling, thinking like that will help them feel better. But because it's not the solution to their problem, there's no end to it. So my world just became smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until in 2022 before I left, I did not want to live anymore. I wasn't going to hurt myself, but I just had these intrusive thoughts that like I just wanted to go to sleep and never wake up. And So that's when I left. My brain and my body were like, this is not working anymore. So that was my wake up call. So I was really at rock bottom at that point. But ever since I left, I have felt so much better. Even in the hard 2 years while my divorce was going on, all of that was just so much better than living in the controlling marriage that I was in. Um, so some people say, I'm recovering from my divorce. And I never think that I'm recovering from my marriage, but I'm not recovering from the divorce. In comparison to the marriage, the divorce was so much easier, expensive, but less stressful.
Um, so how did that look? So you said 2022, you knew you had to leave, but how'd you get there from
Yeah,
that?
so um I think I told my parents that I wanted to go to sleep and never wake up, and they were like, "Ah!" So they said, "Could you just come to our house for a weekend?" And I said, okay, I could do that. And then shortly after that, so I thought I was just leaving for a weekend. And then shortly after that, when I left, things fell apart with him and my children. And they ended up following me over to my parents' house. And then we just never went back. I did one more round of marriage counseling, which was our fifth round. But a couple weeks into that, it became clear to me I could not go back. I read a book by Lindy Bancroft is called Why Does He Do That? And that book was pivotal for me in realizing I cannot go back because this is never going to change. I kept thinking it was going to change if I could just figure out how to be the right wife, then it would all be okay. But his book helped me see people like this almost never change. So I was just going to keep beating my head against the wall and never see any difference. And that's when I knew I can't go back.
So, and your parents, are they still in that fundamentalist religious? And they still were like, nope, my kid's more important than
Yes,
all
yes,
that.
yes, yes. They actually have been supportive of me leaving my marriage. Yes, so I appreciate that. I lived with them for about 4 months, and then I had it become clear to me I wasn't going to go back. Um, so then I rented a house, and yeah, they were supportive of that. So I'm grateful for that. I know some people who are from a very conservative religious background, they get so much pushback about this, but my parents have been good about it, so I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah. How old are your kids now?
26, 24, 21, and 19.
And they were mostly living at home still at that point, or
I had two still at home. Just my younger two girls were at home. The older two had already moved out. But they all, I try not to talk too much about, their perspective on things, but they were all supportive of me leaving too. In fact, all four of them had separately named this as emotional abuse before I had even Googled it. And this was even with me thinking that I was covering up so much of what was going on. But children know more than you think that they know. They pick up on more than you think that they know. And I stayed for so long, partly because I thought that that would be good for my children. I now know that children do better when it's a marriage like this. They do better after a divorce than they do if you stay. But I stayed because I loved them and because I believed wrongly that it would help them. So I also have grace for my past self about that. Do I wish I had left sooner? Yes, but I know I was doing it. I was willing to sacrifice myself if that was going to be good for my children. So I know my heart was in the right place.
yeah. And it sounds like you have a good relationship with them now that they're grown.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And I have been able to say to them, I'm sorry. If I had known what I know now, I would have left. I didn't know, and I'm sorry for what that did to you guys. So just being able to have an open conversation about that, I think is good. Because
well,
even though I didn't mean to hurt them, the intention doesn't necessarily match the impact. So I say I'm sorry for the impact that this had on you. I wish I had known differently than I did.
but that's, a lot of why the like patriarchal, very fundamentalist, you know, Christian church exists in the way it does, because if more women understood what an abusive marriage looked like, they wouldn't stay and they wouldn't
Hmm.
continue to, be the unpaid labor and unpaid support for a lot of not great men. So it's,
Yes.
it's a very systemic thing.
100%. I think, especially something that I realized over these last 4 years as I have left, is that yes, the husband was to blame for his behavior, but also there was this whole ecosystem that served me up for it and encouraged me to stay and told me this was no big deal. And so this is not some sort of isolated incident. It is a systemic problem. And I know it's not just in Christianity. I know pretty much any conservative group has this sort of patriarchal thing. And honestly, even outside of religion, we also have a patriarchal problem, but it's particularly problematic within these very conservative fundamentalist groups, no matter what flavor it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not just conservative groups. That's true. Well, and like I feel like that's like the one thing that won't die even in a lot of really liberal spaces is that like you need to try harder with your marriage. You need to, if you
Hmm.
just did better or did more, or that it still is seen as a failure even if it's the right thing. And like
Hmm.
it's shocking, how many people automatically say, I'm sorry if you hear someone's getting divorced, but like all the women I know who have been divorced, almost all of them, it is, it may not be in the middle of it, but you ask them a couple years later and, um, congratulations is really the right
Yes.
response.
100%. Yes. I often say that even 4 years out here, I still feel amazed that I never have to go back. I often look at my life and just think, oh, I'm so amazed that I get to live this way. I still get to have my choices and my freedom and my independence and so many things that I wasn't sure I was ever going to have. And so I think that's one of the gifts of going through a period of suffering is that when you get out of it, you just have such an appreciation for some things that maybe other people might take for granted. So I'm just delighted with my life now. Yeah, so much better.
Was there like a specific point where you started to feel that joy, or did it kind of creep up on you? Because you said
Um,
you left without intending to leave long term, and then you just never went back.
yeah, so I left my house and moved in with my parents, and then we promptly all got COVID because this was when I think everybody was getting the Omicron variant. And even living in my parents' house in my 40s with my children with COVID, I still was like, boy, I sure am feeling better than I was at my house. And that's how you know your marriage was pretty sucky. Um, yeah, so really, I would say every day since I left, my worst day has never been as bad as it was when I was in my marriage. So my healing and my happy new chapter of my life really started the day that I walked out. It's just gotten better and better ever since then. So I'm not telling everybody they need to get divorced, but woo, if you are in a marriage like mine, I kind of think you should. There's a happy life on the other side. There's freedom. There's something better out there. There's a bigger world.
Yeah. And then there's a comment talking about how it's really sensitive, but the idea of staying for the kids is part of the system.
It
And
is, yes. Hmm.
and that it's not selfish to leave, it's helping your kids see what's healthy.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
yeah, I think it is part of the system because kids get weaponized too by the system to keep things the status quo, even when the status quo is bad.
Yeah, people talk about how divorce breaks families, but I can tell you that a family can be very broken when they are all living under the same household. It doesn't, divorce sometimes is just making official what was already true. Um, yeah, so, but I just was so unaware of the data about children and divorce because in my conservative religious community, we didn't talk about that. We just talked about how you had to stay in your marriage. There was just basically you could get divorced if your spouse left you or if they cheated on you. But even if they cheated on you,
You
divorce
should
was just
forgive
an
them.
option and not really recommended. Like it would be better if you stayed and forgave them.
Yeah. So there's a question. Did you do any financial preparation before beginning the divorce process?
No, because because I was not planning on this. It just happened. I know some people make like a very detailed exit plan, and me, I just hit rock bottom and then went to my parents' house and then just never came back. So it was a very disorganized process of leaving. I don't necessarily recommend it. It worked out okay, but sometimes that's just what you have to do. I don't think I could have made myself walk out without hitting those extenuating circumstances. So no, I did not do a good job of preparing. I will say all of the years before that, of living within our means, and I worked really hard to stretch our budget, and I also was the one who handled all the finances. And so, unlike a lot of women in my shoes, I was not in the dark financially when I left. I knew how much money we had, I knew where it was, I knew how to access it. So that if you ask me what advice I would give to women is don't be clueless about your finances when you're in a partnership. Don't just be like, oh, my husband handles all of that because it's your money too. And what if something happens? What if he dies? What if you get divorced? You need to know where that is because it's your money too. So I feel like I prepared in the sense that I had some general financial savvy, but I definitely did not have a game plan. I just figured it out as I went.
So what did that look like figuring it out as you go? Because so
Um,
you packed up for a weekend, you left your parents' house, you got COVID, and then said, "Oh, this is still better. Maybe I don't want to ever go back." And then
yes. Yes, and his behavior was not helping me. I had left with just, a weekend of clothes, and so had my children. And I texted him, I was like, we need to come and get some clothes. He said, that's not a good enough reason to let you back into the house. And I was like, you know what? This get your wife back plan is pretty bad. What are you even thinking? So I did a couple months of marriage counseling, decided this was not going to get better, and then I told him I was done. Um, and then I got a bunch of guilt tripping in return, but I did stick with it. At the time in my state, you had to live separately for a year before you could file for divorce, unless both parties agreed. And he did not agree. He said he really got up on his religious high horse about it. He said, I'm standing for marriage. And so he refused to sign. So I had to wait a whole year before I even started the process. And then I hired a lawyer and we were gonna try to do mediation, but he just would not cooperate, just sitting like a donkey in the middle of the road, refusing to move. And so then eventually we had to file paperwork and start moving towards a court date because he just would not produce any documents or just respond to anything without the threat of court. So um, but unfortunately, that's really expensive to do that. Um, and so eventually, once the threat of court was there, we were able to get things settled and hammered out. And we did go see a mediator. And then we were able to hammer out a plan and we went to a judge and had it signed. And so at the end of 2 years, it all did work out. But it was way more expensive and way more drawn out than it needed to be. And I think it was about control, which was the same flavor of everything in my marriage. Just one last way to try to control me. So I personally think it's kind of a badass move to divorce somebody who does not want to divorce you. So I persisted and I got it done. And for once in his life, he did not get what he wanted.
Yeah,
Because only one person has to want to get divorced.
thankfully.
Thankfully, yes, at this point
Yes,
in history, thank God, yes,
yes.
we do not
So,
both have to agree.
yeah. And then there's a question, since you handled most of the finances during your marriage, what was the financial separation process like during the divorce?
Well, it was very informal for quite a while. And then at some point during the process, once we both had lawyers, he had started draining the bank accounts. And so then we had to get a little something a little more formal in writing. So I feel like the way that I went about things was probably not the best. It worked out okay in the end. Um, but I think it would probably be better to get some kind of separation agreement going right away. If I could go back, I would probably would do that just to protect yourself. Um, yeah,
The
it was just
number
kind
of stories I have heard about the dudes draining bank accounts, like
yeah.
it's not a an uncommon story. Like it
Yes.
really, like it is a trope at this point.
Yeah, I
It's
was
like,
sitting in nursing school in a lecture and I got these notifications on my phone and I was like, what is going on? Somebody was asking, it sounds like you were working before you separated. So I was I have been blogging, which does earn money. But that was the only thing that I was doing at that point. After I left, I went to nursing school and I just graduated this past May, and then I started a job as a nurse in August. But that's a pretty new thing.
yeah. But you said you were in class when the notification. So you started at school before the divorce was final.
Hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I
So
had started
you're
going to school when I was still married, just doing prerequisites. And it was a huge problem because he did not want me to go to school, of course. He told me I was being selfish by going to nursing school. He said, "You're just doing this for attention," which is crazy. Who becomes a
uh,
nurse for attention? And who says that to a blogger? Why
yeah.
would a blogger become a nurse for attention? Like that just really doesn't
Yeah.
track.
Blogging
Um,
is for attention, clearly.
Compared to nursing,
Yeah.
yes. Way more
Yeah.
people see me blogging than see me nursing. Um, yeah, but I persisted anyway. I kept on going and I got it done. My graduation cap this spring, I got a custom decal that says I did it anyway. Because that is how I felt despite what he tried to do, despite him trying to stop me, I did it anyway.
Yeah. Um, and then a question, was the income from the blog what sustained you after you left, or did you have other sources of income or support?
Yes, yes, that is what kept me going. That's what paid my rent. Um, yeah, there's a book called You Could Make This Place Beautiful. It's written by a poet who went through a divorce, and she has a little essay where she says about her house. She said, "I kept us here with words." And I love that because that's also what I did. I kept my kids and myself in a house with my words. I type words on a screen with this community that I built and this weird little job that I have as it kept us in a house. And that makes me proud and happy and
Yeah.
thankful for the internet and for blogging and the opportunity that I had to do this is amazing.
But he figured probably that it wasn't enough money to live on, but if you became a nurse, you could have enough
I don't
autonomy, or not sure he even
I
thought
don't
that.
know because honestly, I make more money blogging than I do nursing. So I don't know. I really think it was more about not wanting something to monopolize my time or not wanting me to be out of the house and out of his control. I think it's probably more something like that because I could have I could have left him with my blog income. I did leave him with my blog income. So yeah, I think it was more about control.
So what was the decision then to go back to go to nursing school then? Like if you had enough money to sustain yourself, what was
Why did
the
I put
like what
myself
was
through
the
that?
yeah.
Well, when my kids were littler, I always said if I had a second lifetime, I would go back to school and become a nurse. And then I realized, oh, I'm going to be 45 when my youngest kid graduates from high school. That is kind of a second lifetime. And so for a long time, I had hoped to go back to school after my youngest graduated from high school, thinking like I would just work part-time because, I was planning on being married and, just as a way to use my empty nest time to make a difference in the world. So I had wanted to do it for a long time, but as the time got closer, it became a bigger and bigger issue. in my marriage. And I had started doing prerequisite classes while I was still married to him, and it was just a nightmare. The guilting, the shaming, the complaining about me doing even one class at a time. It was so awful. I almost quit. If I had stayed married to him, I definitely would not have made it through nursing school. I just don't think I could have hung in there. It was just making my life too miserable.
Yeah. Comment. I know blogging has been fairly permitted in evangelical fundy Mormon circles and has led to the rise of the trad wife culture. So I can see how
Mhm.
out of the home work was perceived as more threatening, while blogging content creation was not. Yeah.
Yes, because largely I did all my blogging while he was at work, and so it didn't really affect his life that much. But the school was starting to affect his life. So,
Mm.
and to be fair, having somebody go through nursing school is a lot, but I think that if you love somebody and you want to support their dream, then it would be worth it. But if you don't love somebody and you don't support them, then it's obviously not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh gosh, I had a question and now it's gone. Oh, so how did you said you were in class and you got notifications that he was draining your accounts? Like what happened? How did that go? How did
Um,
that
See, I left, I walked out of class and I called my lawyer and she was like, "Well, this does happen." As a divorce attorney.
does
She knows. So I think at that point, our lawyers got involved and then we had to make some agreements to like, okay, here's what the balance was in the account, and this is how much is mine, and this is how much is yours. And so we got something a little bit more formal going. And the advantage to me is that I I knew where the money was and I had access to it. So
you knew
I
it was
know.
happening in real time,
Mhm.
not 6 months later
Right,
when you
right. There wasn't some secret offshore bank account that I didn't know about. I know that happens a lot of times to stay-at-home moms and wives, that they just really don't know what's going on. But I knew.
so because
And
you could stop it in real time, it wasn't as bad as if
yes, because I still had access to the accounts. And I think at one point he tried to lock me out of the account, but I was still my name was still on it. So I just marched myself over to the bank branch, the credit union branch, and I got myself back in.
ah, it's so wild. Like I think about like you can have a massive amount of cash in a bank account and one person can drain it and it's like I don't know what the solution is like as far as banks and financial institutions, but like man, that story is just
Yeah,
so common.
you have to have records. Like you have to have access to the account and show what was in there before, and then you've got some legal recourse. But if you don't have access to the accounts, you are kind of cooked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have your logins, know where your stuff is. Very important. Even if you
Yeah.
think your relationship is fantastic, just always good to know where your money is. Even if your relationship is fabulous, your spouse could die, your partner could die, and then how are you going to know where all your money is? You got to know.
Yeah. All right. With that, I'm going to cut us off on the recording part so that we can have a few minutes to talk fully
Okay,
freely without the recording. But thank you so much for coming and talking to us about all of this.
of course.
Really appreciate you.